Good morning, channel friends. Emma is coming, don't worry. But I've started because the work here is quite long today. I found this piece of furniture very beautiful. It is a piece dated to the late 18th century, early 19th century. I will show you which details can reveal the dating because you often ask me, how can you tell if it's old or not and what age is it from? I will provide you clues to understand it. It is a piece of furniture that has quite some history because, as you can see, the lower part is perfect, natural, original, while the upper part, in some places, has been reconstructed with new wood, probably because over the years it was, let's say, mistreated and suffered the consequences of this. The top is missing because it's a little broken, and I'll show you how to fix it. I'll show you how to repair the structure in some places before starting to do our bar, and paint also because I got it at a market and it's definitely dirty. Today we'll see quite a few things. We'll see how to strip such an old piece of wood while respecting it. We will see how to paint over several color layers. We will create a very particular stencil that, worn and aged, will give it an age of its own. Remember that furniture was also painted in the 18th century, so don't start by saying it's sacrilege. Let's start. I must thank a great teacher who, over the years, has led me to discover many pieces of furniture and explained the details on how to date furniture, how to date the wood, and how to date and recognize the grain and types of wood. So, this piece of furniture has several details. The handle is original, a beautiful large handle, probably hand-forged. It's a beautiful big handle. If you feel it, it weighs quite a lot. Afterwards, the first thing to notice is the inside of the drawers and the side part. Almost always, the wood is not smooth but chiseled. In fact, if you notice the slides of this drawer are not perfectly smooth and especially the sides are crafted and almost always have a type of joint like this, either dovetail or interlocking. We can certainly also notice the thickness of the wood, which cannot be dated to recent years. But more importantly, looking at the side, you can see the original nails, which are handmade with a distinctive head. You will notice that these are not perfect, modern nails. They are handmade nails from before they were manufactured in factories, and also these inserts were used in that period. The type of wood, the type of molding, when you touch it, you see that it is carved, almost brushed by life, by the wind, by the rain, by wear. It is truly brushed. We feel that it is carved, and so already here you can feel that it is a very old wood. But we really understand it when we go behind the piece of furniture. This is what to do to never get fooled when I buy furniture. I often see on Marketplace the word antique, but I can see that it is not antique. This is new modern wood, and someone put it in because it was probably cracked. Here you can already see the old wood. People kept this because the boards were in good condition. And if you come down here, you can see it is the same wood used in the upper part too. So, the original wood. You can see that it is a very worm-eaten wood, even though the woodworm is no longer present, as an anti-woodworm treatment has already been applied. What you can observe is that the wood is not smooth. It was made with hand saws, worked by hand, and joined using hand chiseling. These are woods that were manually built at the time without using modern equipment, so there wasn't yet the electric saw or some machinery that made life much easier, okay? Look here, there are even green drips. Someone probably had already painted it. So always remember when you buy a piece of furniture at a market or from an antique dealer, you must always be careful. They are not acting in bad faith, but you also need to be knowledgeable to avoid being deceived, and therefore recognize the period of the wood. You have to do it from the back. If the back still confuses you, look at the bottom of the furniture, the drawers underneath. Those will tell you the truth. Now let's get started because we need to fix the structure and do our bar.
Let's start with our bar, so a nice bucket of hot water, 1.5 or 2 liters. I add a glass of ammonia and 4 to 5 tablespoons of baking soda. Ammonia is used to degrease the furniture and baking soda helps to convey and activate the ammonia. So I prepare the base with a well-wrung sponge to prevent the wood from swelling and proceed to wash the furniture in the direction of the grain. After this step, I will rinse everything with clean water and the furniture will be ready for paint.
Let's start by fixing this piece of furniture that's slightly misshaped. I use different glues. For the top, I use Saratoga's vinyl glue, Univille. It's a fast glue, it glues quickly. It will be enough for me because here is the joint, the nails, but I need to weld everything together. I put some glue underneath, and I also put some here. I make it go inside and over here as well. I don't remove anything because I don't want to widen the holes. Afterwards, I proceed in this way, holding it steady and firm, Emma, okay? And I will do 2 things. First, I have the stapler, and I will put it right here. And I also use our nail gun in order to more effectively secure some parts that would otherwise be unstable. I remove some glue lumps with a damp sponge, flip the frame over, and also put a few nails on this side. Now I will continue on the other side as well. Make sure to check for any defects or imperfections, now not after we have colored. Here, as you can see, the wood is moving and the hinge is moving, so it's essential to be careful. Therefore, I apply a bit of glue, whether it's stronghold or, right now, I use this single component called politeness. Even Mastro di Ascia is excellent, so if you have Mastro di Ascia, use it as it works perfectly. The only difference is that Mastro di Ascia is a little slower in drying, whereas politeness is faster. So if you need more time, Mastro di Ascia is definitely better. You won't have any problem. Here it will fill with glue because it expands and will hold very strongly. I also check the back part because it moves. I use a piece of cardboard and some small clamps to keep it steady. Please make sure to wrap the cardboard in some film so that it doesn't leave any marks. You see, now I put one here and then I put one on the other side. This way, we don't damage the metal. Be careful not to get your hands dirty because this glue, is unforgiving. As you can see, now I am pressing it very well, very carefully, because at this point, you see, by pressing I keep the wood steady and the excess has come out. Now I can also gently remove it with my brush so that absolutely no excess remains.
We are going to wash the inside of the furniture to also scent it and remove the old smells with our special Liberty solution. I add a generous spoonful of fine salt and the Liberty. The salt helps to fully activate the fragrance and ensures no oily residue is left in the water. I carefully soak my cloth well, thoroughly wring it out to avoid dampening the wood excessively, and then proceed to wash everything completely. Now let's proceed to reconstruct this foot to make it identical to the other one. I use a 2-component wood repair compound which consists of 2 components that, when mixed and heated, can be applied and become rigid after a few minutes. I mix it well, and when it takes on a uniform color, it is ready. When the paste has a uniform color and is warm, it means it's ready. I have about 15 minutes to work with it, but of course, it depends on the weather, whether it's hot, cold, raining, or humid. I try more or less to recreate the same shape, considering the fact that I can slightly sand it once it has hardened. With the Belle Arti spatula, I help myself to give the correct shape and recreate the edges. I continue to shape it until I achieve the perfect form, and then I will sand it to fully define it.
So Emma, we have thoroughly sanitized the furniture, washed it inside as well, made it smell nice, reconstructed this foot and some parts where we need to put our hand because some important pieces were missing, lightly sanded to level it, and now we finally start with the restyling. The wood of the lower part is original, and I am keen to enhance it. I like it with all its imperfections because where the old hand-forged nails are, there are the oxidations of time, and so I want to keep everything. It's not always ideal to make antique wood look perfect and modern. For this reason, I don't sand it because I would remove the last finish, the last part of its history, and in my opinion, that's very wrong in this case. So, we strip it with the paint remover slowly and gently, without causing further damage, and we bring it to be beautiful but natural, removing this slightly shiny finish. Remember, the Magic paint remover is biodegradable, okay? And therefore it absolutely does not harm the environment and, most importantly, it does not harm you. It has absolutely no contraindications and can be used by everyone. Only, if you have nail polish, put on gloves because otherwise it will dissolve it. That's all. This is why you see me wearing gloves today. Emma too. We apply it and, as I always tell you, don't leave a piece of furniture with the paint remover alone. Instead, check it from time to time and keep massaging it with the brush, okay? Because, actually the paint remover works very quickly. To strip this surface, I will use very little. I think 1/3 of a can will be enough, okay? And in my opinion, I will remove everything in a short time. There might be a bit of old stain, so keep some steel wool and a bit of alcohol at hand to remove all the existing residues. I really love this crack. It's a shame it won't be visible because the plate rack is on top. Let's spread the paint remover evenly everywhere, work the product well into the surface, and let's see what we have as a result. It's time to remove our paint stripper. As you can see, the surface is still quite moist, but the paint remover is starting to mix with the underlying surface. This means it has dissolved the clear protective layer underneath. Use spatulas of different sizes when you have a piece of furniture like this because it is not straight. You can see the wooden panels are very arched, so it's completely normal to use different tools to strip the surface properly. I start with our Geppetto scraper, a tray to collect the excess and start to remove the first layer of the surface. Obviously, don't worry if not everything comes off immediately because a good part of what has been applied to this furniture will come off simply with alcohol. So once the protective paint is removed, we will also use steel wool and alcohol to remove the rest. Here we go. We remove as much of the surface layer as possible with the paint stripper and then move directly to alcohol. In this bucket, we have put a small amount of boiling hot water and a bit of ammonia. I squeeze it out a lot because right now the wood is much more delicate. I also keep this small brush nearby because I need to remove the excess between the planks. As you can see, I have to be gentle, but I need to remove the excess that goes there. Use this type of brush when stripping, perhaps frames, moldings, or mirrors with many decorations. It will certainly make the task easier. It is important right now, in this step, not to introduce any water at all. So I wrung out the cloth with ammonia very thoroughly. I only need it to remove the excess paint remover, not to wet the surface. You see, I remove the excess and the ammonia obviously helps me eliminate it much more easily before I start applying alcohol over the entire surface, which will remove even more residues and leave the wood in its perfect tone. You see, I am not wetting the wood at all, I am just cleaning it. If you pay attention to this detail, you will see that the two main front panels have many more defects than the one at the back because this one had a plate rack above it and therefore was much less worn and oxidized over the years. Let's move on to the next step, which is applying alcohol and use steel wool. So, I take a very fine-grained steel wool. I put a bit of alcohol on it. Remember that during this step, the alcohol absolutely does not damage the wood, quite the opposite. It preserves it much more than water. Water, on the other hand, causes it to swell and change. I always recommend using a fine steel wool for this step. The important thing is to always follow the grain of the wood. Going against the grain in this way causes serious damage to the wood, and then to remove these marks, you must sand, which I don't want to do. As you can see, a good part of the underlying stain starts to come off. Emma hands me this piece of paper, and I'll show you the color. You see, it's not dirty. These are the color, the dye, the waxes, everything that has been applied to this piece of furniture over the years. Now, I gently insist in this way, and the wood will become beautifully smooth and velvety because it is being massaged, and all the waxy finishes that were on top are being removed. While Emma applies the masking tape, covering the sides to avoid smudges, because the side is never nice when it's not precise, clean, perfect, I start by removing the handles. In my opinion, today it's important to leave the drawer joint exposed. So we paint the entire front panel, including the dovetail inserts on the front panel, but not the sides. Notice how beautiful this drawer is, with a side that is a full 2 centimeters thick. Handmade furniture with wood this thick is indeed no longer found. I remove the knob, which is really big, made as they used to make them back in the day. I keep it inside the drawer because then I will wash it, clean it, and obviously put it back. It's always good to prepare the structure first, by removing what you want to take away, in the sense that I want to keep the hardware on the underside and colour it. The knobs, no, I don't like them coloured, and obviously not the key either. But the hardware, even if authentic, even if old, will be even more beautiful at the end of the project. So I'll leave it here. Let's also cover the inside part, Emma, where we obviously shouldn't paint, even though we already have a beautiful frame here. So this part here is painted. Follow me with the masking tape on the side. Look, Emma, how well it works, despite its age. So go ahead. We'll then remove the cabinet doors to paint them horizontally. While Emma uses tape to cover all the parts that shouldn't be stained with paint, I start. I start by painting with Black King because today I want a nice textured application, beautifully worn. I use a pointed brush to reach crevices easily. Look how easy it is. We always load the brush very well so that the internal reservoir is full. We drain the excess to avoid making a mess and then off we go. This is not a normal black. We will use Nuit Parisienne as a base today. In fact, it will be a very pleasant, very light black because it will be our base for the next layers, so it won't be all black, but this step is crucial to achieve the finish I desire. Look how easy it is to do all the parts around with this brush, and if we want an even more complete finish, off we go with the Black King. Sometimes one brush isn't enough to achieve a result, you need two. A beautiful coverage. The important thing is to always remember to smooth the drawers well so that they are velvety, and another important thing is to remove the excess to avoid any drips. Now I continue. Emma, will you help me? Let's start. It's already beautiful as it is, and I've been tempted these days to leave it like that, to be honest, because the raw antique wood as this is truly antique, mixed with the Nuit Parisienne style, in my opinion, is perfect. It would have been enough to do a very light pickling on some parts to highlight its sharp forms, but we must stay true to our main idea because it might be, I'm not yet convinced, but it might be that Olivia will truly be perfect here. So now we apply a nice covering coat of Olivia over the entire surface, just one will be enough, before moving on to the decoration. I am now using my prototype, because it is still a prototype at the moment. It is a wonderful brush that I am testing before presenting it to you, but it has some nice horse bristle. You could use an oval brush and a pointed brush if you want to achieve my result. Emma, which one do you want?
You choose.
Come on, I'll leave you the prototype and I'll do the details. We start with a nice covering and textured coat over the entire surface. Textured as we apply the pure paint without diluting it. Do you see how the coverage changes from one brush to another? A brush must always be suitable for the restyling we are going to do. It allows us to save money on paint, time, and effort. So now we will use the pointed brush to do some details, the edges, and this on the flat parts to achieve maximum coverage. It's time to decorate. It will be something delicate, refined, not invasive, but I had to do something with these doors. And there's this stencil that's been on our minds for a while. It's called Sheffield, named so by Emma. And in my opinion, it's perfect because it almost creates a sort of bucolic garden inside the furniture. Start by doing something to avoid getting the edges dirty later on. No problem if you get them dirty, just go over the base color again, nothing will happen. However, if you want, you can take a piece of masking tape and put it on the edge so that you can really use the stencil precisely and not smudge what you've already painted. I repeat, it's not essential. If you want, it's an extra step. I've already done one, now I'll show you the second one. I take the measurements with the stencil, I go right up to the edge. Perfect. Now I will show you how it works, because on this side, as you can see, I have covered it with tape, and on this side, I haven't. So I'll show you what happens. For this stencil, I use a color obtained with a bit of dark sand. My pure sand, and Olivia, the base color. This is a little trick you should always keep in mind when you don't know what color to make the stencils. What does it mean? In this way, you obtain a color that obviously matches the base tone of the furniture, thus perfectly contemporizing it, but slightly lightened. It's a trick to make sure 100% that the color we are about to use will look good on the furniture. Then you can lighten it more or less, creating the shade that you like. This is really important. I now lightly tap to unload the little brush, and then I do this. I rub it gently. The brush is practically empty, and I no longer risk causing drips underneath. Why? Because I don't want a stencil that's too sharp. I want a stencil that's almost velvety, faded, soft, that almost seems like a dream. And applying the color in this way helps me a lot to have a stencil just the way I want it. I gently finish this whole part. Once it is dry, I overlay it and continue with the design. I must say it is quite precise now. If you haven't applied paper tape because you didn't feel like it or didn't like it, you can simply take the small brush with the base color again and go over the edge a little. So, you decide what to do if you have a border or be careful and mask it, but if you can't for various reasons, just clean it up with the base color. The important thing is that it is very precise because for us this is a window. From inside, I see outside, so the edge must not be dirty. Now let's reposition it. Let's dry with the hairdryer. This is dry. We've overlapped it and continue. You need to be careful when overlaying with a stencil like this one, which has a bit of an edge, to avoid too much build-up in the central part. What does it mean? It means that when you do this, you need to be quite gentle and not press down hard, so that there isn't a distinct line that creates a slight unevenness and makes the stencil overlap noticeable. It's beautiful when you can't see where the stencil begins or ends. It's a bit like wallpaper, so when you go to the edge, make sure to be really gentle, like a velvet touch, to avoid any separation between one stencil and another. Now I'll continue and then show you how it looks on the two central doors. When you've done the repositioning and removed the stencil, if you like it and everything is perfect, always remember that the line in the middle where the stencil repositioning can be noticed is never nice. So I recommend taking a small pointed brush, the color you used for the stencil, and doing a very light touch-up to slightly remove this halo where the dividing line can be noticed in some way. It has a small touch-up on the stencil, which certainly allows for a more beautiful, more precise job. Nothing will be visible afterwards. Even though I don't touch it up, it won't be noticeable because I will do a light pickling. But I like to be precise when doing these jobs. You see, I continue here as well. It's unnoticeable, but you might notice a shadowing. This way, I remove it. Ah, I love these antique hinges. Beautiful. And voila, I am still doing the stencils on the two sides, because I really like this piece of furniture to have this bucolic garden on the lower part. So I finished the two sides and then the final technique. It's time to do the pickling. I came outside because I don't want to get my workshop dusty. I put on my mask and under my fantastic cordless sander, I placed a nice 180 grit paper because I want to do a very light, very delicate sanding on the surface. Mask on. Using a sander, you can only do larger pieces, where you don't want to struggle, otherwise you will destroy your arms. I use a medium-fine abrasive sponge to work on the details. If you don't trust the sander, you can also do the parts on the stencil, using sandpaper by hand. I definitely do the edges, look. In this way, it goes exactly where I want it to, and I also handle some delicate parts. Emma started applying jasmine wax all over the furniture, but before I show you the jasmine wax on this beautiful antique wood and on the paint, on the stencil, I'll show you the handles. Why? Because they are not very valuable handles, but they are the original ones and therefore need to be preserved. I don't like this percentage of silvering of the iron that has come out. I would like them to look more antiqued. So I use Noyer Foncé liquid wax, which is exceptional for this purpose, directly on the handle, and proceed to antique everything. Always remember to give it a good stir because the pigments can slightly separate since it is a liquid wax. And then do this. I make all look antique. The handles. I antique the handles. I antique the key. I antique everything. I tap. I do something very uneven. Obviously, once it is dry, I turn it over and do the other side as well, but I will definitely apply it twice because once is not enough. The extra care for this piece of furniture should focus on the top, which we stripped and preserved with all its signs of age. I will do 2 steps. In the first one, I will massage it, hydrate it, and seal it with jasmine wax, a treat. Then we will move on to the Restauratore. The Restauratore will truly provide an incredible smoothness. I invite you to come closer. Why? Because this wood, which is very old and today I can comfortably talk about it as antique and not just old, needs a bit more massaging. You see, the brush stroke needs to be much more intense to hydrate it. Look at the difference from before, where it was still dry, to after. This is the true color of this wood, and it must come out in all its beauty. Obviously, it's not enough to just use a sketchy brushstroke. You need to put in the effort and understand that it needs to be properly massaged and pampered, almost as if you were applying cream to your face. It's exactly the same thing. Such wood cannot simply be, let's say, brushed over carelessly. Look. Now I will do this entire process on all the wood, and then I will also apply the Restauratore. If it makes it easier for you, you can first quickly apply it horizontally in this way to get well into the grain of the wood, but immediately extend the brush stroke and massage well, because we don't want the brush strokes to be visible against the light, in the opposite direction to the grain. The grain is in this direction here, and we must always make the final brush strokes in the direction of the grain. So, I apply my wax everywhere. I massage it very well. It would be advisable to wait at least 24 hours before applying the Restauratore, but I believe this wood is so thirsty that it can be done in the morning. So we'll see. I massage the wood all over. I'll show you shortly how the wax looks on the Olivia. This top is perfect as it is. We polished it well with a cloth, working a lot, and it's only been 3 hours since I applied it, but with the cloth I've already managed to achieve a nice shine. So, since the top is so very old and I want to pamper it even more, I will also apply a layer of Restauratore. The Restauratore is an exceptional product that you can use on very antique, perhaps elegant furniture, finished with shellac, to restore its shine, bringing back the brightness from when this beautiful shellac was applied. Alternatively, you can also apply it on raw woods like this one, but which have been pre-treated with wax. It is important to understand this because the wax contains a higher percentage of carnauba berry and beeswax, which is perfect as it seals the wood's pores. The Restauratore, which is like a beauty cream, will brighten it. Look at the effect that you can see now, but tomorrow when you look at it again, you will see that it is even deeper and more hydrated because it penetrates the fibers of the wood. I put a little on my brush and now I massage it into my wood. Here too, the rule of wax applies. It needs to be applied very deeply. The surface needs to be pampered. You see, I don't just apply it and walk away. This is the correct method of application for the Restauratore. This wood needs to be pampered. And immediately, you can also make a first piece of wood, a board, and then polish it. But the important thing is to immediately take a smooth cotton cloth, or the ones you have, and polish it in this way. Why? Because once you polish the Restauratore, it will provide the furniture a velvety smoothness and an incredible brightness. It will be truly water repellent, so it won't suffer from impacts, scratches, or anything else. It will be protected, it will be hydrated, and if this piece of furniture is kept in this way, it will last another 100 years effortlessly. It's important to remember that Restauratore should be massaged immediately. So, apply it with a brush, massage it right away with a lint-free cotton cloth, and I assure you that the smoothness you will achieve afterwards will be exceptional. Please make sure the Restauratore is applied only to wood. That probably needs care. Now I am applying it everywhere, on the entire part of the furniture. It has an exceptional fragrance. There's nothing chemical about it. It's a supernatural water-based product, and you will really smell the scent of a cream of beeswax. So don't worry, because there will no longer be those products for nourishing wood at home that have that strong, intense, and unpleasant smell. I assure you that it will be really pleasant to apply as well. Let's move on to the Jasmine Wax, applying it to the entire colored piece of furniture. I want to invite you to pay attention here because look at how the color changes once it's hydrated. All the grain of the furniture is highlighted, and now it becomes clear why we applied a coat of Nuit Parisienne. As you can see, in some areas the black patina is visible, which emerged during the pickling process, while in other areas you can simply see the light wood. I didn't just want to see the wood, I also wanted to have this strength given by the black of Nuit Parisienne, and now everything is falling into place. Look how beautiful the stencil is once we hydrate it. Here too, some parts are noticeable, you can see. The antiquing made thanks to the pickling and sandpaper, and that's what I like at the moment, putting everything in its place. I am now applying wax to the entire piece of furniture to hydrate it well. I massage it, and then I take it to its home and show you how it looks in its environment. It is very important to always remember that when we do a restyling, we need to find the right key for the furniture and for our home. Sometimes we want to put more and more things on the furniture. We want to try one more technique. We feel like something is missing. Sometimes there are pieces of furniture that decide what should be on them. A restyling was done here. We could have simply left it in raw wood and stripped it, but I wanted to give it a bit more strength and further highlight its old tabletop. But always remember, sometimes you need to stop putting too much on the furniture. These techniques may seem easy and light, but sometimes that's what the furniture needs. A piece like this doesn't need anything else. This restyling is also finished. So, I don't know if today's makeover might seem easy to you because perhaps the techniques are simpler. It's not one of those restyling where you think, wow, what techniques have they used? Everything is very simple, but it's all done as it should be. The stripping, the reconstruction of the foot, the finishes, the wood treatment. Everything. We just wanted to add this stencil on the doors to make it more distinctive because I didn't like it being too smooth. I had to leave my mark. But sometimes, you have to know when to stop, understand what the furniture is saying to us, its message, and bring out its essence. I really like this a lot, and I finally have a nice place to put these plates that I adore and have kept in a box for many years. So always remember, you may inherit dishes from your grandmother, your aunt, your mother. Why keep them locked up? Put them out. Get a nice piece of furniture. Shall we say goodbye? Remember, Magic Paint isn't on Amazon, only at www.elisiahome.com or from authorized Magic Paint retailers on magicpaint.it. Until the next restyling, goodbye.